Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another discussion video. So you may remember a bit over a month ago, I made a video where I was talking about fairies and werewolves, because at this point I feel like if they were put into the game, it's almost inevitable that they would be way too similar to spellcasters and vampires. And I thought, well, I'm gonna try something different, and in a follow-up video, I'd read some of your ideas for how they should be done in The Sims 4. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're gonna start things off with another concept by Luddy Simmer. I'd love to see that if Create a Sim and Build and Buy items for a Fairies game pack are 100% made of natural materials such as wood and plant, because sometimes they can be a perfect compatibility for improved plant sims in this game pack. And I think that's a really cool idea to make everything, like with the pack, a bit more meaty and just have more substance, not just by adding fairies but also improving plant sims. I think they should have done that with Eco Lifestyle, but sadly they did not happen. I would not be surprised if the developers themselves keep forgetting about plant sims, since they were put into a free update alongside one of those challenge things, and they really haven't been touched. Well, actually no, they got one or two little things with seasons, I believe, but other than that, the plant sims have not been improved and have not been brought into the same sort of level that they've been in The Sims 2 and in The Sims 3. So I guess that would be it. That would be my last hope to see plant sims ever being improved. Then for part 2, I like that if this game pack is somehow similar to Realm of Magic, where there are also two worlds, inside the tree hollow is full of fairies, and also the fairies have their own superpowers like vampires and spellcaster systems. I was thinking maybe fairies should have something similar to this, where maybe when you go into the secret world, you would be really tiny, and then everything around you would be a lot bigger. It could be interesting, so it's not too similar to the Magic Realm. And yes, I think it goes without saying that fairies absolutely should have a skill tree like the spellcasters and the vampires do. For example, like one of Vampire's superpowers where vampire sims can turn into a bat, fairy sims can do that too, but turn into a fairy orb, because we know that they like recycled packs. For the Werewolves game pack, I missed the lunar cycle and full moon effect around the world from The Sims 3 Supernatural, so I'd love it if it came back. Can you imagine what it would be like in The Sims 4 if the full moon effect appeared in it? And heck yes, this is something that I really want back. I feel like they are pretty underappreciated in The Sims 3, but I can also see why people hated that as well, because I did find the lighting with the full moon effect to be a bit too much, and I don't like the zombie outbreaks either. I had to get a mod to get rid of that, but I do think Luddy Simmer's concept looks pretty good. I don't think the full moon effect looks too obnoxious here, and with how the moon is shown in the UI between the sun and the thermometer, it looks pretty official to me. That's exactly how I imagine it being displayed there. Even if werewolves never came back, I would not mind lunar cycles coming with something else. But I think this is the best excuse at this point to bring lunar cycles back, since they did not come with Realm of Magic. Next up, we got a comment from Jessica Collin. I love fairies and werewolves. I'm practically foaming at the mouth at the idea of what the world, Create a Sim and Build Buy, that could come with fairies. I think maybe fairies could have more mischief/nature-based powers, like creating gust of winds, starting fires, earth powers, maybe turning sims into plant sims. Good opportunity to upgrade them too. That's a really good idea, actually. That's a really good way of kind of also expanding upon Luddy Simmer's idea too, since he was also suggesting improved plant sims alongside fairies. So yeah, okay, that's a good way of working that in. And maybe water-based stuff too, like soaking sims. I'm not really thinking so much of the potential of the occult itself, but the whimsical theme that could come with fairies. I also 100% agree with you about werewolves, the moon cycles, and body hair especially. Heck yes, body hair. One thing they could do to switch it up is instead of going the 80s route, they could go the more medieval / Twilight / Harry Potter route and make the werewolves transform into actual wolves or more wolf-like. It could make for some fun customization. Yeah, I think that definitely would be a key factor in making the werewolves feel very different from vampires, where they could maybe play a little bit similar to dogs from Cats and Dogs, except they would be controllable and they would have some unique interactions. And, well, actually it would be cool though if they were like full-on wolves, because I remember in The Sims 2, when you want to become a werewolf, you have to look for these, basically, like, they're dogs, but they're meant to look like wolves, and they have these yellow eyes, but they're basically like regular dogs. It would be kind of cool if they had wolves that were a bit more unique. And with the fairies, yeah, I do imagine the best way of trying to make them unique is to make them a lot more pranky than the spellcasters, though they still have the mischief school of magic, so it is a little tougher to avoid. Though when I was looking back at all the spells that the spellcasters can learn, like one of them is the Infatuate, it made me think, oh, it would be kind of fun, I guess, if fairies still had some sort of love spell. Maybe it could be stronger than what spellcasters could do, but if it was an actual Cupid like thing where the fairy would get out a bow and arrow and you'd have this sort of holographic arrow pierce the other sim, and then they'd fall in love with another sim who's nearby. There's also a link to this thread from Cinemegopolis, and well, their thread is very, very, very long. It would take forever for me to read it all, so I'm gonna go over my favorite parts. And continuing with the lunar cycle conversation, we have lunar cycles will be added to the game. Sims can look up the current moon phase using their phones, or they can watch the weather channel, and or the player can check the calendar. Yeah, those would all be really great ways of checking what the lunar phase is besides just looking in the UI. Bonus points if the lunar cycle is added in the pre-patch to the base game. I was really surprised they didn't do this in The Sims 3 because they kept it exclusive to the Supernatural expansion. And in full moon, weak werewolves force transform, and all werewolves get a +1 happy moodlet. Bonus points if it's a +1 energized instead. Yeah, I think that would make more sense for it to be energized. And in New Moon, werewolves won't be able to use some of their powers, such as supernatural speed, and will get a +1 tense moodlet. Bonus points if lunar eclipses can happen once or twice a year, forcing werewolves to transform into their human form, and they lose all their powers during the eclipse. Wow, yes, I think I did mention lunar eclipses in my wishlist video for lunar cycles. That would be so awesome, and yeah, even affecting werewolves to that point would be really cool. Also, bonus points if super moons can happen, force transforming all werewolves to their lichen form, and giving them a +3 energized or +3 tense buff. They also suggest blood moons, which I think could be pretty cool, as long as they're really rare. I don't want it happening every week or something like that. I think they should be pretty rare. Kind of reminds me of Breath of the Wild. For the werewolf rankings, we have new Omega, Omega, Beta, Alpha, and True Wolf. Omegas have yellow eye color, Betas have blue, Alphas and True Wolves have red. And to become a Beta, you have to join a pack. So that's kind of interesting. You have the rankings that the vampires and the spellcasters have, but then you do have the twist about halfway through where you have to join a pack, so I like that. Then for becoming a werewolf, Sims can ask for a bite or ask for cursed scratches from werewolves in their lichen form. If the request is accepted, the werewolf will bite the Sim's hand or scratch it with claws respectively, giving the target Sim a +15 uncomfortable moodlet. Oh boy. And then they will stick a big plaster to the Sim's hand to prevent it from bleeding. Wow, that's surprisingly nice and wholesome for werewolves, but okay. And then werewolves in lichen form can also give the werewolf curse to people by fighting them or asked to turn. And then if successful, the target will turn into a werewolf in 2 days or in the next full moon. But if not, the sim will puke and get sick for a while. So that's interesting that there's a chance for failure too. And then sims can't be turned into werewolves when pregnant, sick, or younger than teenagers. Yeah, the kids usually get ignored for cults anyways, so I guess that's realistic. And then, unsurprisingly, new babies would have a 50% chance of being a werewolf if one of the parents is a werewolf, and it's guaranteed if both are werewolves. And for your needs as a werewolf, you'd have hygiene and energy replaced with werewolf energy. I guess that makes sense. And then other than times when power/weaknesses use werewolf energy, this new need is basically the same as energy, but if it drops too low, werewolves will transform into lichen form before passing out. And for the powers, this part is pretty long, so I'm gonna go with some of my favorites in this one, like Better Smelling Sense, which allows the werewolf to see if certain sims are on the lot by breathing deeply outside the house. It definitely would be cool to have a way of tracking sims who are currently on the lot, so that could be one way to do that when you're a werewolf. And then adapted to the wild, unlock ability to eat raw meat and fish. Yeah, this would be really awesome. I used to have a mod that allows any sim to eat raw fish, but I don't believe that mod works anymore. It might need to be updated still. But this would be really cool to have that unlocked for werewolves without needing mods. And for wolf speed, run faster in lichen form, but I think that should be faster than the vampire run. But yeah, I think that would be a pretty expected one. And then infrared view, where you can see the chances of sims turning into werewolves, or warmer sims are less likely to turn and cooler sims more likely. I vaguely remember some kind of similar power in The Sims 3 with the vampires, where they could scan a room and they could see which sim gives them the most plasma, or the best plasma. So I guess that could be a little similar to that, but yeah, you could have maybe sims who are highlighted in orange who are warmer, and then sims highlighted in blue where they're cooler. So I think that would be an interesting aspect of the werewolf life. And then Memory Watcher sounds really cool too, where the werewolf can look at a sim's recent memories by sinking their claws into the back of a sim's neck. A bit violent, I guess, but still the general idea sounds good, because then you can get a +2 to an emotion depending on the target's main mood, and it does make the target pass out. There's also the wolfish howl, where your werewolf howls will no longer sound like sick cat meows. Yeah, that would be pretty funny if more amateur werewolves sounded really bad, but then the ones who have been a werewolf for quite a while and are really experienced, they can have genuinely terrifying howls whenever you hear it. Like, think the thunderstorms in the game. Imagine it rivaling that amount. So there's definitely a lot of cool ideas for werewolf powers. I would not expect Maxis to do half of these, but if they did do at least most of these, and including the ones that I like, that I feel are the most unique compared to what we already have with other occults in the game right now, yeah, this could maybe justify werewolves coming to The Sims 4. There's also some pretty neat weaknesses, like improper eater, not enough moon, light phobia, ear-tearing howls, puppy tendencies, incomplete transformation, and uncontrollable hunger. The werewolf pack ideas sound interesting too, where you have a tattoo as a symbol, have resources to make special drinks, and access to special training. You can find out who pack leaders are through the internet and then impress them with your werewolf lore or your powers, and the alpha werewolves can make their own packs. The pack hideouts won't be on the map. They have to be discovered by becoming good friends with a werewolf who knows where it is. They have different settings like deep jungle, mountains, in ruins, or a building's basement. And the pack hideouts would have special gameplay items like training tools, a device that determines moon phases, and a board and map table to make more money out of rabbit hole rampages. A pack owning more hideouts means you can recruit more pack members, but you can only own up to 3 at a time. It definitely would be cool to have some unique fighting animations when werewolves battle vampires. The fight to the death is probably too much for The Sims, but still kinda cool as an idea. Having werewolves being able to eat pet food but has a chance of being uncomfortable from it is also kinda interesting, as well as teaching pet skills faster and having initially negative relationships with cats. The next comment comes from MD, and they say, perhaps since so many people were mad Happy Haunts lost the community voted stuff pack, and people have been so vocal about it, they could take that idea and create a game pack or expansion pack with some of its ideas, and add in the werewolf and fairy life states. I think both should still have a tier system, but for the sake of time and money, they could be smaller and less complicated than spellcasters and vampires. Maybe only 3 tiers and up to 5 or 6 powers. Also, a world more akin to Disney's Halloween Town would be cool. An over-the-top, silly, spooky, and cute-themed world would be awesome if the Grim Reaper could have a house there, along with the career. And if they added fortune tellers with this, I would be in love. Bonehilda, too. I definitely would love to see Happy Haunts become a game pack eventually. That was my second choice, especially for the Grim Reaper freelance career. But if they were to do an expansion pack and go all out and include more supernaturals alongside that, besides becoming a Reaper, yeah, that could be a really interesting pack. Giving the werewolves and fairies less powers than the vampires and spellcasters, I think would make the issue of bringing them back even worse. So, with them being in the picture, if they were to be put in the same pack as a Grim Reaper career and fortune telling and Bonehilda and all that stuff, then I think they should go and make a full expansion pack. It'd be kind of interesting to see what they would title it. Would it just be Supernatural or would it be something else? I don't know. Then Hydriel has some ideas for the fairies, and with the world, he was basically saying that it would be cool if it was a hidden world, and if you are a human, you need to go through the fairy circles, which would now pop up around neighborhoods. I'm not sure if I like the idea of the fairy circles appearing in the neighborhoods unless their wings were hidden or just generally looking like human Sims so that it wouldn't be so invasive for people who don't want fairies showing up all the time. But yeah, the world itself being a magical forest or an extended version of Sylvan Glade or a dark forest, I think that would be really cool because it seems like with Sylvan Glade there kind of are fairies, but they're always in sprite form, so if they put fairies in the game, I think they do need to address that. I like a lot of the ideas that Hydriel has for the gameplay as well, where they could talk to all the animals like as if they're human Sims, minus the romance options, and they'd be able to gain relationships quicker, and they would have special gardening abilities, and the skill tree would be different in the way that it would have 2 different pathways, one focused around animal and gardening powers, and the other focused on mischief powers and anything to get under someone's skin, and they would also get flaws just like the vampires. So I think that would be a very cool way of changing things up, because at this point, yeah, we're pretty used to having skill trees, whether it's for the vampires or for celebrities and for spellcasters. I think they do need to change up the formula a bit, so that'd be a really cool way of preventing this skill tree gameplay from getting stale. I'm not really a fan of the idea of fairies stealing babies. I think that would be too controversial for The Sims, but I can kind of see where the idea is coming from. But I do like the idea of fairies being able to curse someone with bad luck and good luck. Robert Gronwald says, for a start, I think that fairies really need to be updated. My personal idea would be to go for a much more classical, folklore-based representation of them, less Tinkerbell, more the fairies from A Midsummer Night's Dream. Have fairies that are highly customizable, so that some have wings, but others have antlers, or horns, or iridescent skin, bulbous noses, or really long pointed ears. They could also have an elemental alignment, so that some fairies could start fires, while others nurture plants or meld into the water. In addition to this, there could very well be 2 fairy courts, Seelie and Unseelie, or mostly benevolent versus mostly malevolent. I could imagine each having an immortal fairy ruler with a unique appearance, and depending on what sort of actions you take, you align yourself to one of these two rulers and potentially get extra powers such as the ultimate nature magic or the strongest trickster curse. Just really sink into the lore of all. Yeah, okay, this sounds pretty cool. Yeah, to go with a more sort of folklore direction instead of maybe the more expected Tinkerbell, even if more people are familiar with Tinkerbell. That would be interesting to go in a much different way than expected with fairies, and they could do things like this where you do have things like rulers and just the nature of your powers being different depending on which way you go and that sort of thing. And also, I think there's a very easy way that they could make a full-on expansion with both fairies and werewolves in it. Have a pack set in a British moorland area with dreary grey hills and small ancient woodlands dotted about. There could be a town where on half of the population are all sorts of mysterious werewolf types, like an American werewolf in London, while the other half of the town could be very nature-based and have fairy folk mixing in the population. A lot of fairy legends are from the UK to begin with, so it would go very well with that area. Also, both fairies and werewolves are strongly associated with the moon, so they have that connection. Those are some very good points, and that's definitely one way they could make a fairy and werewolf pack different from other packs, besides Discovery University, I guess, since Brightchester's UK inspired, but there's more to the UK than just that one area. So that could be a very interesting way of making them justified by also having a world that is very different from most of the stuff that we have in the game right now. And I do like the idea of having this sort of opposing sort of halves of the town as well. I normally would associate that with a werewolf versus vampires conflict, but we already have the werewolves. But I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be opposing. Like, they could still maybe get along. It would just be that the town would have very different sorts of areas, and that could make for an interesting amount of variety. One last comment I want to go over that I found intriguing comes from Talon Omari. Werewolves could even have a special bond with certain breeds of dogs in-game. I'd be very interested in hearing which breeds those would be, because I don't know that much about how specifically each breed of dog acts, but yeah, that could be an interesting way of integrating werewolves with cats and dogs. Though, you'd also have to account for the fact that you can make mixed breeds. Not every dog in the game is just one breed or another one. And that's all the comments I wanted to highlight. I definitely learned something while making this video. While those of us who want more occult appear to be in the minority, we're very passionate about what we want, just like we would be with any of the more generally popular requests for the game at the moment. I was not expecting such in-depth replies. I was so surprised, and now I am more open to the idea of fairies and werewolves being unique enough, even though I still don't feel confident that EA and Maxis would do them justice and do half of those ideas. But with that, be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with my latest content from The Sims, Paralives, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!